Welcome to the Public Sector Marketing Show, a podcast for government and public sector marketing professionals who want to level up their digital marketing and social media knowledge, skills, and strategic thinking. And now, welcome your host, Joanne Sweeney.
Hello and welcome to episode 53 of the Public Sector Marketing Show. Innovation in digital communications is critical to online success. But does your department or agency have an innovative culture and mindset? In today's show, I'm shedding a light on the agencies that are early adopters when it comes to social media, and they understand that first testers get the best algorithmic wins. Creativity on social media needn't be challenging. After all, you're going to lean into your pillar content, but the innovation and creativity comes when it comes to content format and distribution. Coming up in today's show, social media trends that require innovation, what an organization needs to be social media adaptive, the AIM method of social media success, and I interview Mike Woods, news producer in the Corporate Communications Office of the West Midlands Police, an organization that I have written about extensively over the course of 5 years. In today's column, I'm talking about how to be innovative on social media. Maybe you are not an early adopter, but really innovation comes when it's embedded into the organization within team, resources, and upskilling staff. The fast-paced nature of social media means that it's really difficult to understand each and every change that is happening on social media. So listening to a resource such as this podcast can really take away the overwhelm and keep you up to date. But innovation is much more than that. Innovation is embedded into a social media plan, and it also gives freedom, capacity, and space for team members to test, to pilot, to experiment, and to take action and to understand results. And when you listen to my interview with Mike Woods from West Midlands Police later on in this episode, you will get a flavour as to how innovation becomes central to the working day of a cross-organisation team, especially those managing communications. In my experience working with government and public sector agencies on a daily basis, there's another trait that I see when it comes to innovation, and that's one where there is no fear. There's no fear of getting it wrong. There's no fear of testing something new. There's no fear of jumping into a new feature on a social network. And in fact, there's actually an appetite and a hunger for it. When I see people coming through my trainings and more recently my social media bootcamp, I see that innovation streak. I see that willingness to elevate and to step up social media output. The other side of it is, even if you're not willing to innovate, it's going to have a direct impact on the results that you're getting from social media. So I believe it's not whether you choose to innovate, but the responsibility and even more than that, the expectation from the viewing public, because the public are watching reels, TikTok videos and YouTube shorts from their favorite brands. And there's an expectation that their government and public sector agencies that are there to serve the public will be equally creative online. But let me try and take some of the fear out of it for you. Get your plan on paper. Really think about the content pillars that are a priority this month or this quarter. Define your messaging and then create the master content. This can be a video or it can be a script. And then quite easily you can reformat that content with those key messages into multiple different types of content for social media. Remember, the social networks need you, they want you, and those that are early adopters with a mindset for innovation will rise to the top of the newsfeeds.
Level up your social media skills by taking our diploma in social media, plus gain an industry qualification. Use the code SOCIALMEDIA20 for a 20% discount.
Visit publicsectormarketingpros.com.
In today's consulting segment, I'm going to share with you my AIM framework, AIM, and that will allow you to build in innovation into your social media communications. So what is AIM? Well, AIM is a method of getting the attention of the viewing public. That is your first challenge on social media. The I in AIM stands for interest. So in the first instance, you've reached your audience, but now you got to get them interested in your content. Does it resonate with them? Does it emotionally engage? Is it even relevant to them? And then thirdly, M, motivation. And this should be the holy grail of social media communications for your sector. Citizen behavior change. So motivating people who are watching your social media content on an ongoing basis to take some action that you want them to take. It might be registering for your e-sign, it might be attending a virtual recruitment fair, or it might be downloading a form or subscribing to a webinar. And you see, when you want to get social media reach, engagement, and conversions, it's really important that you put the citizen and the content at the heart. In parallel to that, you are also trying to beat the algorithm. So the algorithms are constantly updating and they are tweaking their own strategies to allow content that is innovative and creative and that is utilizing the newest features from that channel to rise to the top and to get more exposure. And if you listen to last week's episode, you will understand that Instagram Reels is one very good example here. So when you're thinking about innovating on social media, think about the AIM method. Develop your social media campaign plan with attention, interest, and motivation in mind, and lean into all of the quirky new features from the social networks. It doesn't mean that you have to join a new social network, but what you want to do is you want to be an early adopter and to get that first performer results back in your social media wins. If you're struggling with your social media strategy this year or even your implementation plan, then why not consider taking our social media bootcamp? It's proving hugely popular among your peers as people learn from me and I teach them the how-to of each of the 5 core social networks: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and TikTok. I share with you the top tactics that are getting most organic engagement and reach this year. You also get a mini social media plan for each social network. So if you're interested, send me a DM on any social network or drop me an email to info@publicsectormarketingpros.com.
A one-stop shop digital marketing and social media resource. Join our membership academy for 12 months. Access a library of how-to videos, template strategies, and organizational policies. Monthly live coaching. Attend webinars with subject matter experts. Meet and network with public sector pros from across the world. Use the code MEMBERSHIP20 for a 20% discount.
Visit publicsectormarketingpros.com.
In today's show, I'm delighted to be joined by Mike Woods, a news producer within the Corporate Communications Office of West Midlands Police. Did you know that West Midlands Police were the first police agency in the world to join Snapchat? And I know this because I wrote about them and their constant innovation on social media in my very first book, Social Media Under Investigation, Law Enforcement and the Social Web. You've also heard me refer to them as best practice with their own case studies on these podcasts, and I've also written about their innovation in many of my articles and my blog posts. So I'm delighted that Mike has joined me on the show, where I finally get some primary insights into how and why the West Midlands Police are early adopters when it comes to social media. Mike, thank you so much for joining me on the show.
No problem. Glad to be here.
So listen, first of all, tell us about West Midlands Police and your role within corporate communications.
Okay, yeah, so West Midlands Police, second largest force in the country. We police a huge area, more than 2 million people, very diverse area, lots of urban areas. Obviously, we've got big cities, Birmingham, Coventry, but, great area, very exciting area to work in. Obviously, we've got the Commonwealth Games coming up this year. We've just had City of Culture for Coventry coming to an end now. So yeah, really busy policing area. My role particularly, my job title is news producer, so I work within the corporate communications department. So we are the voice of West Midlands Police, if you like, internally and externally. So we've got a whole team dedicated to internal comms because we've got around 10,000 people in the organisation. But then my focus is on the news output. So that's working with the media on responding to their queries, which we get several hundred a week, but then also issuing proactive content as well, based on the good work that our officers do. And I say within that role, I've got responsibility for the social media team. So we have got large followings across all the major platforms, and are kind of constantly looking at ways to increase that, but more importantly, to increase engagement and help the force's mission.
So I've been an external independent observer of West Midlands Police for many, many years, and you guys have featured in my academic thesis and in both of my books. And so I'm a huge fan of your work. The first police force in the world to join Snapchat, and I could continue and I will, but where does this culture of innovation and a commitment to social media and in the public interest messaging come from?
I think it's kind of ingrained in everything that we do, really. Innovation is one of the kind of key pillars for what we do. We appreciate that you can't stand still in the social media world. You've got to constantly be looking to the next thing. Sometimes the next thing might not pan out. We see social networks come and go from time to time. Obviously, there are a few kind of stalwarts that have been with us for many years now. But yeah, it's just about we kind of just focus on what we want to achieve as a police force, which is preventing crime, protecting the public, and helping those in need. And what we can do to build on that. It's such a fast moving landscape in terms of social media. We've recently started a TikTok channel. TikTok is something that we didn't get involved with too early, because we just wanted to see how it was panning out, what kind of things it would be used for. But we felt relatively recently that it had got to the stage now where we could find a voice on there and find an audience on there that perhaps wouldn't be engaging with us on the more traditional platforms like Twitter and Facebook. So yeah, I think it's just constantly being aware of what's on the horizon, and working out how we can use it to our advantage.
Now, often I find in my work and working with government and public sector agencies that communications in terms of resourcing and staffing can be the poor relation, and not often recognize that with great comms you can save crises or overcome crises. How big are your teams in relation to comms?
So there's about 40 people in the corporate comms department, but we do everything, the stuff that I've just described around internal and external comms as well. But there's also other elements to it. So the freedom of information unit sit within corporate comms. So that's obviously our legal duty to supply information where appropriate to those who request it. We've also got the digital services team. So that includes the force photographer, the force multimedia video producer, as well as the team that manage the external website where obviously people report crime. So really, big important department, which for the reasons that I described earlier, is constantly developing and evolving. And I think we're lucky to have a command team at West Midlands that realizes the importance of good corporate communications. So that they respect what we do. They work with us. We work really closely with them on a daily basis. And we are in a pretty good position, I'd say, in terms of all of that.
I think you are. Now, I know that members of the Irish Police Force and Garda Síochána, who have about 15,000 of a team, I guess, will be looking over at West Midlands and going, wow, 40 core staff and then digital service, freedom of information, etc. Have you gone externally for your staff, or do police officers kind of move into comms, or is it a mix?
We've got people on the team who have held other police staff roles. It used to be that the department was headed up by a police officer. We've now got a staff member, a police staff member who heads up the department. So we don't actually have any police officers within the department. But we've got a mixture of backgrounds. People like myself, a former journalist. We've got people who've had kind of marketing backgrounds as well before. We've just had someone join who worked for a charity producing video content for them. So he's just joined us now. So yeah, a real kind of good mix of backgrounds and skills that are brought to the table.
And I actually really love your job title, like news producer. Like, this is a very sophisticated, well-oiled media machine. Because if you think about it, you know, those responses to media requests, freedom of information, it's very difficult unless you put in that comms infrastructure. So do you think you're served well and are giving a very timely communication service to media and to public?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we pride ourselves on kind of, you know, the speed of getting information out there. It's probably sometimes not as quick as some people would want it to be, but you know, with us, we have to be right. We have to get it right. We are a trusted voice in the region for news and updates, and so, you know, if we have to take a bit of extra time to get it signed off by all the people that need to get it signed off, then that's what we do. But yeah, and, you know, in terms of my job title, that gives a kind of indication of the approach that we take to corporate communications, being very proactive, not just kind of sitting back and waiting for the questions to come to us. There's loads and loads of good work that goes on 24/7 within West Midlands Police, and you know, my job and the other news producers is to, you know, shout about that basically, and you know, be coming up with good ways to present those stories. You know, storytelling is, you know, as old as time, but what changes is the way that you tell those stories.
Yeah, and you know, sometimes journalists get cross with me when I say that social media is now a mainstream form of communications. And I used to be a journalist also, so I have huge respect for the profession. But they get cross, and what I'm not saying is that, you know, mainstream media need to take a back seat more than ever. The world that we live in right now, we need a strong, independent media. But I get the sense that at West Midlands Police, you are viewing social media as primary channels of communication with the public.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we put the public first in everything that we do. You're absolutely right. There will always, you know, the relationships with the media will always be important, and we've got good relationships with there. But you know, obviously, what we found in the social media era, if you like, is that we are now publishers in our own right. We build up a kind of a brand, if you like, and you know, it's up to us to instill, you know, trust and confidence and legitimacy with people. And so, yeah, you know, part of the reason that we've focused on audience growth is because we want to reach as many people in the West Midlands as possible, and give them, you know, the facts as, you know, as we know them to be. The media will obviously, you know, analyze that and develop that, and that's absolutely right and proper. But we've also got the opportunity to have our say, without any kind of third party involvement in it. We can just kind of put it out there, and people will make of it what they will.
So let's talk about your social media strategy and how you use each individual channel to engage audiences. Do you want to give us a little bit of a sense of that?
Yes, someone said to me at a conference a little while ago, and it's always stuck with me, that Twitter. So I'll talk about the channels that we're on then. So Twitter, we've got something like 200 Twitter accounts, and that ranges from obviously the corporate ones to lower level geographic ones that cover individual neighbourhood policing units like Birmingham, Coventry, Solihull, etc. Then we've got lots of teams that have got their own accounts as well, and we've got lots of individuals as well. So the chief constable is very active on Twitter, got a big following, and then other officers as well. What we're actually doing at the moment, though, is having a look at those accounts and saying, well, you know, is what we've got, is this the right number, or would we be better served with fewer accounts but higher engagement accounts? So that's something that's going on at the moment. Then we've got Facebook pages. We've got around 8 or 9 of those. Again, the highest level corporate one, and then pages aligned to each of our key geographies. And then we've got much more recently, obviously you mentioned Snapchat there, but we've got Instagram, which we've had a big push on over the last couple of years, and it is growing very nicely now. And then most recently TikTok, I say, which we've just started posting content to probably in the last 3 to 4 months. And, kind of dipping our toes in the water a bit at the moment, finding out what works and what doesn't work. Obviously a very different kind of style and tone to a lot of the other, traditional platforms. But I think, yes, we can absolutely dabble in, being a bit more creative with the presentation and what have you, but it's really important that we never forget who we are. We are the police. We have got a purpose to serve. We're not a company that's trying to sell a product, but at the same time we want to get our messages out there. And so yes, let's be flexible and creative in how we do that. And then in terms of the approaches to the different platforms, I say that the thing that was said to me a little while ago was that Twitter should be about what's happening now, Facebook should be about what's happening longer term, and then Instagram is who we are. And I've always quite liked that approach. And so with Instagram we've got obviously lots of officers out all day every day. Often they'll take pictures of interesting things that they see, funny quirky things that they see, or just a nice encounter in the street, a nice real moment. So we will, and they will post that on their Twitter pages. So we will sometimes repurpose that as an Instagram photo, or we'll do an Instagram story if we've got a particular call to action where we want people to swipe up to or click a link, as it now is, to go to a specific campaign page, whether it be about violence against women and girls, which is obviously a key priority at the moment, or vehicle crime. That's something else that we've got a lot of focus on at the minute. And then I say, TikTok. We've done a bit of content with kind of aimed at obviously a younger audience, and being a bit more creative with the content, kind of just shooting footage on a mobile phone. Really kind of I don't want to say rough and ready, because that will do it a disservice, but you don't need hugely professional production values for TikTok. I think the nature of it is that you can try and be a bit raw and realistic.
Yeah, and now they've just announced that they're moving from 3 minutes to 10 minutes.
10, yes, I saw that. Yeah, yes, I saw that. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, one question I wanted to ask, and it's a common challenge within policing, but within all government and public sector agencies, is convincing senior leadership that social media is valuable, that it generates a return on your time and your comms investment, and that it's welcome and expected from the public. How do your senior leadership engage? And you've already mentioned that you have accounts for their voices, but it seems to me that they're pro-social.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, we've certainly in my time have never encountered any kind of resistance on that. That they all get the value of social and what we do. I know particularly during COVID and the lockdowns that we had there, our senior leaders were really keen that we gave the public an idea of what we were facing on a day-to-day basis. Obviously, a lot of those rules and regulations made life very difficult for people, and there was some anti-police sentiment that we saw. But we kind of we did a lot of work around sharing body-worn video of the major breaches that we were encountering. Things like club nights happening in abandoned buildings, really big gatherings, dozens and dozens of people, and I think people did get that, and that they saw that breaches were taking place. And the nature of the body-worn video means you can kind of present it. This is exactly what it was. It's the old picture tells a thousand words. Well, if you're looking at an officer's video from when they've done a walkthrough of a party with 200 people, the story kind of tells itself, really. So absolutely, the senior leaders completely get it, completely on board, and really supportive.
And you talk about COVID and managing public health restrictions, and like I know from even an Irish perspective, it was a very difficult place for law enforcement to step into, to taking away citizens' freedoms. And so that communication message and having those body-worn cameras really served you well. But do you have a social media policy for police officers that are involved in creating that content and feeding it back into the central newsroom, if you like?
Yeah, we do. It's actually being reviewed as we speak. We've had one in place for some time. It was due a refresh. We're just going through that process now, doing the relevant internal consultations with people. But yeah, and it's a publicly available document. The old one will be available on our Freedom of Information website, and the new one will be eventually as well. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't think there'd be any surprises in it to anybody. It is basically around appropriate use of social media on and off duty, which is what the public would expect of us. Not giving away any sensitive operational details that might compromise work that we're doing, and just maintaining the professionalism really that the public rightly expects of us.
And when it comes to content production for social media, and the demands on marketers are huge right now in terms of the multiple different content formats that are required. And we've just mentioned like TikTok is pushing out the bar to 10 minutes. Do you have any like content repurposing strategies that were derived within your newsroom hub?
Yeah, we obviously, I say, but one of the things that I did when I started was have a big push on video, and particularly body worn video. So on the news desk now, everyone, it started off, we only had a couple of computers, office-based computers that had video editing software on. Obviously, when we went to working from home during lockdown, we arranged for that to change. Now all of our laptops in certainly in my area of the office have got video editing software on them. And yeah, we just always encourage everyone on the team to think video, basically, whenever they're doing a story. Is there any bit of video that can support this? And it doesn't need to be very long. It doesn't need major production values. But yeah, and then I've got a couple of colleagues on my team who are particularly focused on the Instagram and TikTok growth at the moment. So I might, if we're producing a video that's a kind of square aspect ratio for Facebook and Twitter, they will then look at repurposing that as a vertical video, portrait video for the other channels. So yeah, we try and obviously use content. Not every bit of content is appropriate for every channel, obviously, but where we think that something might have a place on another channel, we'll try and get that done.
So growing following and increasing numbers is one success metric for social, but it doesn't tell the full story. No. And even if you think of the pandemic, I mean, there was a massive shift in public behavior on the back of great digital communications from our government and public health leaders, and that was evidenced right across the world. So what would you say are the other levers or metrics of success that you've seen from social media?
Well, I mean, engagement is the one for us, and I know that word gets thrown around quite a lot. But some kind of tangible reaction or behavior change from people is what we would look like, because again, we're not trying to sell a product, but often we are trying to change behavior, whether it be crime prevention advice, or encourage people to report certain types of offences to us. So I know recently we got involved in a Home Office led campaign called Street Safe, which encourages people to report issues if they're walking down the street and maybe they don't feel safe there because the street lights are broken or something like that. They can go on a website and they can fill it out. And we and other agencies involved in that kind of work will respond to that. And I know we kind of got that up and running, and instantly there was a big uptick in reports from the West Midlands area that we could directly attribute to the social media content that we produced on that. So again, that is a measure of success for me, a kind of a behavior change, a tangible result from the public. You're absolutely right. Follower count is nice, and when you've got big incidents that you need to communicate with lots of people at all, it's good having that bank of people there that trust you and will follow and share your content. But really, and this is something we're developing more and more at the moment, it's about that behaviors, engaging with the right people. We're doing lots of work around kind of audience segmentation at the moment, in terms of there's a whole network out there of community Facebook groups that are really kind of local level, almost kind of street level, really, residents groups that will be talking about issues in their area. Well, that's a really engaged audience there who are really passionate and interested in their area and will want to know what's going on. So we're looking at how we engage with them to get our messages out there.
Now, obviously, you engage with other police associations and organizations, and even with government or public sector, because when you're in comms, you share best practice. But are other organizations envious of the output and the team that you have? Because it seems to me, again, on the outside looking in, that it's a well-oiled digital comms machine.
Yeah, I mean, it's we do get quite a few questions into us about how we do what we do and why we're doing it. I know particularly around the video. I've given some feedback to some national colleagues around the kind of workflows that we've got set up for body worn video and that kind of thing. So yeah, it is always nice to have that kind of feedback and praise. But similarly, we will also look at no one's got all the answers to everything. We're looking at other forces all the time to see what they're doing and see what we can learn from. I go to meetings with national colleagues from time to time, and we discuss what's working and what's not working and the challenges that we're all facing. So yeah, I don't want to sit here and pretend that we've got all the answers. We are all ears, and we'll look out for good ideas wherever they may be.
And you know what, the great thing about me in this role, and I just ask the questions and ask people to share their insights, is that this translates across countries and continents. Best practice in social media, in government and public sector. So I've had Caitlin Jinks on from the United States, from Australia, Chris Shung on from the US, you from the UK, and then I've had Andrew McLinden on from Ireland. And those policing perspectives globally, everything comes back to the same points of resourcing, senior leadership, great content, committing to the changes on social. So apart from TikTok and going all in on TikTok this year, you mentioned updating your policy, looking at potentially rationalizing the 200 Twitter accounts. Is there any other big plans that you can share with us? Any exclusives?
I think we're aiming to get much better at listening to the public. There are times when social media often gets used as a broadcast tool, and that's fine, because we do need to broadcast messages from time to time. But now we're kind of really turning our attention to, well, what do you want to hear from us? What services do you want from us? Is that crime reporting? Is that you want to know what the police's policy is on a certain thing, and we'd like to hear, read an article about that. So I think if I had to encapsulate it, it's being much more of a kind of listening and responding organization from a social media point of view, and getting away from the sort of pumping out news content. Obviously, we do, we monitor comments and we feedback, and we do reply to people where we can. But I think we're at the stage now where we want to kind of almost flip it on its head, and let's listen to what the public want to hear from us.
Yeah, that's a great development, and I'm going to quote Russell Lollisher from the Department of Transportation in British Columbia in Canada, who said at our recent summit, lean in to the comments, because that's where the gold is. For sure. What social media tools could you not live without? Because social media marketers also love talking about tools, apps, and software.
Yeah. That's a tricky one. I mean, I spend too much time in the analytics sections of the main platforms, for Facebook and Twitter. It's a real rabbit hole there in terms of where your audience is from, how many seconds they spend watching a video. We look at that a lot in terms of video length. Are we wasting our time if we're making a video of more than 5 minutes? If the average watch length of one of our videos is more than 30 seconds, I take that as a big success. So I'd have to say the kind of analytics tools, we wouldn't be able to live without those.
Yeah, and honestly, I always say to people I'm working with, for all the social media questions that you put to me, all the answers are actually in your analytics.
Yeah.
So just go and have a look. Okay.
Yeah.
Final question, Mike, and you've been so generous with your insights so far. People are going to watch this and listen to this, and likely they won't be at the stage where you guys are, but how can they get to the next step? Because I always say progress on social media is success once you're moving the needle. So have you got any practical advice for your peers?
I think keep experimenting. You might not get it right all the time, but just try. But but also never forget who you are. You know, if you're an organization like us, you've got core values which the public expects from you that you can't deviate from. So yeah, just stick to who you are as an organization or an individual. But yeah, don't be afraid to kind of, push the envelope a little bit.
I love it. Experimentation, tests, and iterate. Mike Woods, it's been an absolute pleasure for me to finally get to speak to West Midlands Police after years of talking and writing about you. Maybe somebody was actually listening, but I really enjoyed it, and I know my listeners and my viewers will. So continued success, and thanks very much.
Brilliant. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Level up your digital skills by taking our diploma in digital marketing, plus gain an industry qualification. Use the code DigitalMarketing20 for a 20% discount.
Visit publicsectormarketingpros.com.
I just want to remind you that our upcoming webinar is on how to create a content marketing strategy in 30 minutes. You will get a template content plan, and you can map out your content plan over the next 12 months. I'll also be teaching you how to repurpose your content, create it once, and share it often. So go and get your free place. Go to publicsectormarketingpros.com/webinars. As always, I want to thank you so much for tuning in to this episode and other episodes. I show up every week because I see the value that it creates for you, and it helps you keep relevant in the digital age. If you haven't already, please share the show with a public sector pro that you know. You can be our best advocates. And if you haven't subscribed, please do so on your favorite podcast platform. And if you so wish, leave a review, because that will help us climb up the podcast charts. I'm Joanne Sweeney, your host. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Public Sector Marketing Show. This episode has ended, but your digital journey can continue. Head over to publicsectormarketingpros.com to access resources and links mentioned in today's show, and to connect with Joanne and her team. Until the next time, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review on your favorite podcast platform.